okay? Yep. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the 36th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. My name is Greg Rapport. I am the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that provides one-to-one mentors to youth who are in need. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio, who allow us to use this airtime. That's Doc G behind the big board tonight, and Robin is there with him as well. We thank them both for being here. You know, we don't spend enough time talking about some of the other great programming that happens right here every week at Hamilton Radio. A lot of the people that I talk to about the Age Out Angels Radio Hour view it as a kind of a one-off podcast. And it's so much more than that if you look at this in the larger context. This radio station has been around for about 20 years. And it's based on a forward-thinking proposition that the potential of internet radio to reach an international audience is dramatically more pervasive compared to traditional radio. Remember when it used to be a huge deal? You'd get a 50,000-watt radio station, and Wolfman Jack set it up in Mexico and blasted it into Southern California, so that if you know the history of radio, you know that 50,000 watts meant a lot, you know, back in the day, and it could reach all the way from the Baja Peninsula into Southern California. And so now here we have internet radio, which is going all around the world. And I wonder if my friend from Sweden is listening tonight, because it's 2 a.m. I found out that it's 2 a.m. in Sweden. And so what's happening here is just like a traditional radio station, though. There is a regular lineup of shows every day and every night of the week. And the following here is increasing all the time. Over the course of, what was it, a 24-hour period, there you were actually able to log 2 million listeners over a 24-hour period. So this is pretty serious stuff. And I think that counts for more than just a one-off kind of podcast. And I want to make sure people know that. There are 3 separate channels on continuously to satisfy anyone's taste. And just to give you an idea, Tuesday, the live show started at 5 p.m. There's music playing all the time. But the live show started at 5 p.m. with the Jerry Petito Show. And that's followed by DJ Danny, who's on from 7 to 8. Then there is the Round Table with John Brecco from 8:30 to 9:30. And after that, it's the Wisecrackin' Show with Dave Wisecop. Get it? Dave Wisecop, Wisecrackin'. You gotta stay with the puns, ladies and gentlemen. And it just keeps going after that. Another 3 hours of live entertainment before the night's over, all right here on hamiltonradio.net. So sign in. If you're on hamiltonradio.net and you're a new listener and you haven't signed in yet, do that so that you'll get notices for when some of these great shows are on, and you can take advantage of all the great programming that happens right here in this chair that I'm sitting in every single day. My guest, who should be calling in hopefully at 8:15 tonight, is a very special lady by the name of Lynn Tonini. And Lynn is the founder of the Aging Out Institute. And she has a story to tell that actually goes all the way back to like 10th grade. She has traveled quite a path that led to launching the Age Out Institute. So be sure to hear that interview. And it's coming up in just a few minutes. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we're on every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. And we have some intelligent, caring people coming up as guests on the show. Next week, May 10th, a representative from the Foster and Adoptive Family Services Organization will be right here in the studio with me. On May 17th, we'll have Jamie Parker from the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. And on May 24th, I'm holding this back. This may be some surprise young people right here in the studio, one of the youth councils, who's helping the older people and the organizations learn about things that the younger people need, because as older folks, sometimes we get that wrong when we think about what younger people need, and it's good to have their advice helping us. So be sure to tune in every week at 8 p.m. for what is our look at the child welfare system. No calls tonight, please. You can't call in tonight. You can put a comment on my Facebook page, and I'll be happy to read that on the air if you do. So if you have a comment or a question, be sure to ask it in the comments field of Facebook. So before we begin our first story, I just want you to take a moment and hit that share button on Facebook, please. We are set to begin a national recruitment drive to find mentors and partner organizations all over the country. So if you know anyone who might be interested in joining us, please give them a chance to hear this program. And look us up online at www.ageoutangels.org. Hit that share button, please. Ask your friends to share it with their friends, and on and on and on down the line. And that's how you can help the child welfare situation, just by hitting a button. Hey, did you know that May is National Foster Care Month? And that brings to mind two things. The first is, in honor of National Foster Care Month, you might want to consider making a donation to Age Out Angels just by going to ageoutangels.org and hitting the donate button. You can do that. And our first story tonight comes from the Daily Herald in Chicago. It's written by Madhu Krishnamurthy, and it's a story about Judson University in Elgin. They are launching a youth mentorship program for children who age out of the Illinois foster care system. This is wonderful to hear, especially a university. Funds raised through Judson's Spring World Leaders Forum are being applied to support this new initiative. Now, those funds in the past from that World Leaders Forum were used towards other things, and they are redirecting a lot of that money for this program, and we thank them for that. Here the quote is, "With the sponsor support, it allows us to do some neat and innovative things," Judson's president, Gene Crum, said. You don't often hear a college president use the word neat. They're doing neat and innovative things. He continued to say, and here are his numbers, 28,000 youths nationwide age out of the foster care system at age 18 or 21 each year. Of those, 31% experienced homelessness, 50% had been unemployed, and 57% had been incarcerated, he said. Now, he also said Illinois has one of the highest rates of youth aging out of the system. So their sheer numbers are something that are important. Judson's mentorship program is being launched in partnership with a Chicago nonprofit organization that empowers youths currently or formerly in foster care. The name of that organization is called Foster Progress, and they provide college-educated, trained one-on-one mentors to youths seeking to attend college. So it connects students to scholarships and grant money already available, and also they do a very cool thing too. They fund any gaps, and you know when you hear it said that a foster youth can go to college for free, there certainly are a lot of things that they qualify for, but bet your house there's a gap. Bet your house there's going to be and probably a few $1,000s in there somewhere that they would have to try to borrow, and then they're on the hook for it. And so this is a group that funds that gap. The group also partners with a family and the high school, the foster care agency, and the college to help provide a web of support. So this is a good organization doing good work in Elgin, Illinois. Next, from the Chronicle of Social Change, an article by Jeremy Loudenbeck. Los Angeles hopes tech investment can improve visitation for foster children. Here's a little nuanced area of the foster care world that you don't always think about. Los Angeles County's Child Welfare Agency is betting that improved technology and analysis can make its family visitation process more efficient for kids and parents. Now think about LA, right? Think about the LA area, how spread it is and how congested it can be. And here you're faced with a simple task of working it out so that a young person can meet with their biological family. And what is created in that process is it becomes an issue. The county's Department of Child and Family Services will use a $130,000 contribution from philanthropic partners and $30,000 in county funds to move ahead with a plan to use high-tech mapping to improve court-ordered visitations for the 18,000 children placed in the county's foster care system. 18,000 children in one county. That's what LA County's foster care system is like. A motion passed by the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors set aside the $30,000 in county money to move ahead with a contract with child welfare think tank Chapin Hall. And you'll hear more about Chapin Hall. They have their hands in a lot of things related to child welfare, almost like the Ann Casey Foundation. So Chapin Hall will provide technical assistance for a new way to help children in foster care maintain relationships with their biological families. The quote is, working with Chapin Hall to create visitation efficiencies will potentially have a sweeping impact on tens of thousands of children countywide. And that's according to DCFS Director Bobby Cagle. After being placed into foster care, regular visitation is a critical part of children maintaining relationships with their family. It is a crucial part of the reunification process. And in Los Angeles County, that task is complicated by the high number of children in care and the need to facilitate long rides across the county's traffic-choked roads. The plan is to optimize the ability of DCFS to provide visitation for children. Are you ready for this? Through geospatial analysis of the locations of the children, caregivers, and visitation centers. That information will be included in a new app. You love this. If you're a nerd, this is nerd heaven. The information will be included in a new app for the agency that will help reduce the transit time for parents and children. According to DCFS, the county spends about 2 million hours each year coordinating more than 4 million hours of visits. So right now, half the time of their visits is spent in the coordination process. Interestingly, helping children in foster care maintain relationships with their families has actually been linked to a greater likelihood of a child's being reunified with family. And remember, the goal of foster care is reunification. But boy, do they have a way to go. About 36% of children who were removed from their homes in 2016 in LA County were reunified with their parents 12 months after removal. 36%, 12 months after removal, reunified, and that is below the national standard of 40.5%. In fact, in LA County, the whole reunification process can take much longer. The length of time to reunification averages 10.2 months in LA County, which is about twice as long as the national average. The department's plan also includes deploying about 20 staff members as air traffic controllers. Can you just picture that? It's just a room with 20 people coordinating all this, to coordinate the court-ordered visits in many DCFS offices that serve as visitation centers. To help create better visitation plans, DCFS may also expand opportunities for unmonitored visits and recruit relatives, family, friends, and service providers to act as trained volunteer visitation coaches who could help parents learn how to have positive, meaningful visits. Finally, the department will decide later this year whether it will enter into partnerships with ride-sharing services like Hop, Skip, Drive that would be able to help transport children, caregivers, and families to and from visits. $130 plus $30, $160,000 to make the whole system work so much better. That seems like a reasonable amount, doesn't it? And so finally, our final early story today comes from The Blaze. And this was originally reported by KCNC TV, written by Dave Urbanski and titled, "Churches Helped Nonprofit Keep Kids Out of Foster Care Amid Family Crises, but the state ended that." This is a story about Colorado Safe Families for Children and how sometimes laws defy common sense. So listen to this. Colorado Safe Families for Children had been working with a handful of churches in the state to keep kids out of foster care during family crises. When life happens and you don't have a village, you can really stand the chance of losing your kids. And that's heartbreaking, says Kelly McFadden, head of Colorado Safe Families for Children. Now, her nonprofit works with about 10 churches to find volunteer host families to care for children until their parents are able, according to KCNC. Colorado's Safe Families for Children is for those kids who aren't neglected and abused, but their parents are really just in a critical situation or a trying situation where they just need a little help. McFadden added, noting that such examples of that are like, when you have a deployed parent, someone who's in the military, a single mom who ends up in the hospital, or a flood or a natural disaster. Kirk Seldenridge is out there listening, and Kirk, I want to say hi to you because in a minute I'm going to tell everyone that you're the person who made our theme song, so keep listening, pal. So to be willing to hand your child to someone you don't know takes a lot of courage, and we all recognize that. But you have to be in a pretty desperate place to do that. So they work hard, and the host families work hard to love these children, and just as well to love the parent. But the state ended all that. The state of Colorado sent a cease and desist letter telling the organization that it was acting like a child placement agency. It required licensing. And fortunately, both a Democrat and a Republican stepped in and just stopped it. Republican State Representative Kim Ransom and Democratic State Representative Jonathan Singer both believe Colorado Safe Families for Children shouldn't be hampered by bureaucracy, the station said. Singer and Ransom introduced a bill allowing such organizations to operate with state oversight, adding that it establishes a legal agreement letting parents temporarily give up custody of their kids and institutes background checks and training for host families, as well as reporting requirements. So that's made its way through committee in the House, and we're hoping that Colorado will adopt that measure. Safe Families for Children, by the way, operates in 32 other states. So no matter where you may be listening from, they are in 32 states. There's a chance they operate where you are, and that they're doing very good work. So once again, no calls tonight. We're hoping that our caller will call in soon. Our caller is on now. Hi, caller, are you there?
Hi, yes, this is Lynn Tonini.
Lynn, I'm so glad you called in. Welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to hear your voice. And before we start, I just want to remind everyone, especially now that you're here, to hit the share button on Facebook right now, and and also, if people would be kind enough, send a mass email to your address book as well. And please ask everyone to share this with their friends. It's that simple for our listeners to do their part, help us spread the word. We hit 40,000 listeners in the last 2 weeks. And we did that with two things. We did that with the power of this radio station, and we did that with the help of our listeners who are hitting that share button. So we want to thank everyone very much for sharing when they do, and ask them to do that right now. My guest tonight is Lynn Tonini. Lynn is the founder and executive director of the Aging Out Institute. And Lynn, I want to do it a little bit chronologically, if you would be so kind, because this idea germinated when you were in 10th grade and your life changed.
Yes.
So
yes,
what happened when you were in 10th grade?
Well, when I was in 10th grade, early in my 10th grade year, some things happened. My family life was not good, and the state, I was in North Carolina at the time, took my younger sister and I away from our parents and into foster care. And so that's when, like you said, my life changed dramatically, and I myself, became a foster youth.
And so what was when they took you away? Was it like sudden? Did you have that feeling of being yanked?
Well, I would say yes and no. It was very abrupt, but the circumstances were that a family friend actually took us out of a very bad situation and delivered us, if you will, to the state. Okay. So it wasn't like they stormed in and took us out. We were more or less taken by somebody we knew.
Good.
To social services.
Less trauma there. That's good. And so then from social services, what was your first stop? in the foster care system?
Oh, well, there were no rooms in any type of youth shelter, and they didn't have the ability at the time to put us in a foster home. So we actually went into a group home that was more or less a treatment type of group home for youth that had behavioral issues, which we did not. But,
I was going to say.
But that's where the beds were, so that's where they placed us.
Yeah, so, well, I'll tell you right now what everybody's thinking. You were. I'm going to say you were a good kid, right? Who was,
well, yes, I would say yes. We were generally very good kids.
Okay, so now you're taken out of your biological home and placed in a group home, which was really meant for kids with behavioral problems. And so every one of our listeners right now is thinking, oh goodness, the psychos you must have encountered in that group home. But it wasn't quite so bad, was it?
No, it really wasn't, and it might have just been the timing. When we were placed there were a couple of other kids, and it was actually co-ed. So there was a young man in the house as well, and another girl. And generally, even though they were dealing with behavioral issues, they weren't over the top. So if they were having problems, it was the type of problem that was dealt with in one-on-one meetings with them. I never saw any real outbursts or serious types of misbehaving myself while I was there. So, I think we were pretty lucky.
I'm assuming, though, that a group home for kids with behavioral problems is going to have a pretty high level of structure and behavioral modification programming.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, they had a point system, and I don't know if any listeners are familiar with this, but we had these point cards. And every day we had to earn a certain number of points in order to earn our privileges watching TV, going to the skating rink, whatever they had lined up. And so you had chores to do, and they watched how you interacted with each other, and you got points or you had points taken away depending on how you met the expectations and the schedule for the day. So that's how we lived every day, is going through this point program.
Mm-hmm. And well, now see, I talked to a lot of different people who are in the foster care system, and there are people who would seriously resent that level of structure. I'm sure there are kids who run away from places like that. But
I'm sure.
But I guess it has to do with something has to do with your attitude as well, going into something like that.
Well, it was kind of a combination. One, I'm generally an optimistic, half-glass full kind of person, and I always have been. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be some light at the end of this tunnel, so I'll just, I'll do this until I get there. So it was more of an attitude of hope. But also, we came from a family structure that had very high expectations as well. So basically, my sister and I were the type of kids that basically did what we were told. So if this is what the adults were telling us to do, then that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And so, you were not, like, in many cases you find out that the foster child might be the first one in their whole family to ever graduate college. But in your family, it wasn't like that at all. You had very college-educated people who were in your family, right?
Yes. My uncle and grandfather have doctorate degrees. All my cousins have master's degrees. My sister has a master's degree. So, it was just instilled in us from a very young age that education was extremely important.
Yeah.
And one of the expectations was that we would absolutely get A's. And so that was one of the things that carried me through, actually, the foster care program and the group homes and such that I lived in, was having this one thing I could control, which were my grades. And so since I could control my grades, at least I had the feeling like I had some control in my life.
Now, let me ask you this question. While you were doing that, did you want to go home?
Not really, because the family situation was such that it just wouldn't have been comfortable, and I wouldn't have felt completely safe.
Yeah.
So I was actually happier being away from home. And we were also older, too. So I think being older, you are able to recognize that I'm in a better situation here than I was there.
Right. Now, let's talk about different schools, though. When you were placed in the group home, was that a change of school?
Yes. Yes. I went to several different elementary schools, but from 4th grade to 10th grade, I was in one school.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 10th grade, when we were placed in the group home, that's when we were moved to a different school for the first time. And we had a few other changes after that as well, because we weren't, when we went into the group home, we didn't stay there.
How long did you stay there?
Until we aged out. Well, we were there just about 6 months or so.
And then?
And that was until a couple of beds opened up in an emergency shelter. And this was a home with house parents where kids who were waiting for the parental decisions to be made in the court systems would stay. And so it was a mix of all sorts of different types of kids there. We were all waiting for the courts to say, yes, the parents will get custody back, or no, they're going to stay in foster care.
So again, the shelter was not intended to be a long-term placement, right?
No, correct. We actually acquired 2 year-long beds. So we had 2 beds there, and it's interesting that they were, it's not like they have spaces for us. They always called them beds. So they had 2 year-long beds where we were able to stay for a year.
And so then when you went from the group home to the shelter, was that another school change?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, so we went to another school, and we weren't terribly far from the other school. We were just over the school district lines.
And we're talking about those delicate high school years, right?
Right, exactly.
Where socialization is a real key. And they keep flipping you from school to school. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Because my guess, based on your positive mental outlook, my guess is that you buckled down and got to the schoolwork and didn't worry so much about your social life.
That's an interesting way to put it. You're absolutely right. I worried more about my grades. And I actually, by that time, had pretty much learned, you know what, I don't want to get close to people. I don't want to become really good friends because I don't know when I'm going to be leaving again.
Yeah.
So I basically more or less, I can get along with just about anybody in any clique. I have that personality where I can cross cliques and such. So I got along with a lot of people, but I never got close to them.
But you learn not to get close. Do you find that, and I don't want to get too deep into the psychology here, but just on the surface, did you have to, is allowing closeness something you had to learn when you were older?
Yes. Yeah. It's something that I still wrestle with today.
Yeah.
And I'm 50 years old. So even today, it's tough to allow myself to really get close with somebody. And maybe that's a trust issue.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly part of it.
Certainly is. Okay, so you're going from school to school. After the shelter, is that when you went to Baltimore?
Yes, and Baltimore was where my grandmother lived, and she was already 80 years old. And so we went to live with her. My uncle actually arranged this change. So he went to the North Carolina Social Services, and he made the arrangements for us to leave foster care proper in North Carolina and live with our grandmother in kinship care in Baltimore. But that only lasted, I think in terms of semesters at that time of my life, it only lasted 1 semester, the second half of my junior year there in Baltimore. And she decided she just really couldn't handle 2 teenagers, so we needed to move again.
Now, was that, in Baltimore, was that where you went to the public prep school?
Yes. They, where I was living, for anyone who's familiar with Baltimore, it's not too far from the old Memorial Stadium. They have a high school that's actually called City College. And it was more or less a prep school, but a public school. And I really had a great experience there and really enjoyed it. But coming from small town North Carolina, it was a huge change because in this school, the population of the students was 90% African American and 10% Caucasian, which is just a flip from what I was familiar with in North Carolina. And you know what? To be honest with you, I am really glad I had that experience because it really broadened my experiences and my thinking about people.
I think that happens a lot especially when you're a child going through pubescence and then adolescence. And people talk about all prejudice and racism and all that kind of stuff. And if you're in a school surrounded by no one different than than yourself, how do you know?
Yeah.
How could you possibly have perspective on what it means to be prejudiced or racist? So,
Right, exactly.
I had a similar experience in high school with a great mix of different races, and I thought it was tremendously eye-opening. So but also we're talking about Baltimore, and people are getting an impression who are listening to this show right now of sort of an inner city high school experience, and that's not what you had, right?
No, right. This was more like a prep school. So
Yeah.
most, I would say, the vast majority of the kids there really were striving for college and had high expectations for achieving there. In fact, one of the things that I experienced there, which was unique, my first assembly when I started going there, they stood up and said the Pledge of Allegiance in Latin. Because everybody's expected to learn Latin at that school, and that was something I had never run into before, so that was a surprise.
Yeah, I can imagine. But it wasn't like a Christian school or anything like that, right? Where Latin was part of the liturgy. It was just Latin.
Yes, because it's, that's the foundation of so many languages.
It was Latin for Latin's sake.
Yep.
I wonder how you say that in Latin.
I don't know, because I actually didn't finish any of the Latin classes, because then I moved to Pennsylvania.
No, Lynn. Listen, your story is just unbelievable, but I want to devote the next half of this interview to the Aging Out Institute. So if you will bear with us, your mic may cut out for the next minute while we take a short break, but don't go away, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
And we are back with our guest, Lynn Tonini. But before we talk with Lynn again, I just want to remind everyone that our theme music comes to us courtesy of Kurt Seldamridge, operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. And we also want to give a thanks to the fine gentleman whose name just eluded me, but Marty Light is his name, who played bass on that track. And he's just such a sweet, sweet player, and we love him. So thanks to both of you. Also, thanks to the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week, and also to the people who made donations to the Aging Out Institute, because they do good work. And remember, every time you purchase something from Amazon, you could be making a donation to Age Out Angels without spending a penny more. You heard correctly. When you go to Amazon, there's a pop-up that offers you a chance to go to Amazon Smile. And if you make your purchase through Amazon Smile, you can designate Age Out Angels as your donation organization. And without it costing you more, a portion of your purchase will go to help children who need it the most. If you want to friend me on Facebook, I can send you a link that will take you directly to Age Out Angels designation, save you a few clicks. Lynn, is the Aging Out Institute available on Amazon Smile as well?
No, I'm learning something new as I'm listening to you here. I'm going to have to look into that.
Okay, so for right now, for Mother's Day and for Foster Care Month, when you go to Amazon Smile and designate Age Out Angels. So Lynn, is there a connection here between the past that you just described to us and the metamorphosis of the Aging Out Institute?
Well, yes. After going through my foster care experience and kinship care experiences, I really wanted to do something to give back, if you will, something to help youth who are struggling with similar or worse situations than I went through. I feel like my situation was fairly easy and positive compared to what some youth go through. So I wanted to find a way to help out. And for several years, I worked at Milton Hershey School, which is a residential school for at-risk youth in Pennsylvania. And I worked with the youth in Future Business Leaders of America, and I helped teach them some skills to be able to become employed in my position there. And I just loved it. But my career took me in a different direction. So then I thought, well, now what can I do? And I got this idea of building a website where I could compile resources and links to resources that help youth age out of foster care.
Forgive me, but
And
I just want to
yeah.
back that up 1 second, because I didn't want us to gloss by the name Milton Hershey School.
Oh.
Because we're talking, first of all, they brought Hershey's Kisses to the studio tonight, and that's bad for me, but we're talking Hershey's chocolate people here, right?
Absolutely. In fact, whoever purchased those kisses are supporting these youth at risk, getting an education. It's a K through 12 school, like I said, a residential school. It gets them out of some very bad neighborhoods and a lack of opportunity, and it puts them in this school that has, I don't know how much money they have. It's just amazing, their funding, because actually the school owns 51% of Hershey chocolate.
Oh, my.
So when you buy chocolate, the stock, most of it is owned by this school, so that they would always be funded. That was the idea behind that. So if you buy Hershey chocolate, you are supporting the education of many, many at-risk youth in the Pennsylvania area.
51 cents out of every dollar spent on Hershey's chocolate to the bottom line profit belongs to the school. That's phenomenal. That is just amazing. And I'll bet, you know what? And I'll bet like nobody knew it. You were the only.
Hardly anybody does know that, and it's just an amazing thing. They have a whole trust built, and it's the trust that owns the stock, but the trust runs the school, and it's kind of complicated. But generally speaking, you could say, yeah, the school owns 51% of the stock.
Yeah, it has to be complicated, because with that kind of money, there has to be proper oversight. But that's phenomenal. And they're not just for foster kids, right?
No, they have a few foster kids, but generally it's just for kids. They state it as the poorest and the most alone. So they bring in kids as young as kindergarten who are in very poor situations, poverty areas, both urban and rural, and those who, as I said, are most alone. And foster kids are sometimes those youth, the ones that are the most alone, kids who don't have parents, or very few family members who are available to help them. So they try to find those kids to help.
I mean, it's just so reassuring to know that if there's another Babe Ruth out there growing up, that there is a modern-day Boys Town that they might be able to go to and
exactly,
find their
exactly.
way.
That's what it is, and they also will pay for college.
Yay.
So there are expectations as far as keeping grades up and such, but the kids who go to Milton Hershey School have the opportunity to have their college completely paid for.
Wow. Now,
yeah.
so you were a teacher there, right? But you weren't just teaching, right? You always seem to go beyond the teaching thing and get into the training aspect of
right.
working
So
with
I
youth.
wouldn't call myself a teacher as much as a trainer. So my background in education is in training and development. And so I actually was on a team that helped train the house parents.
Okay.
Right, so these are couples who live in homes with 8 to 12 kids in the school, and I helped to train them when they came on board to get ready to work with at-risk youth who are not their own, and among other training programs as well. But that was really the primary focus of the work that I did there.
So you were training the house parents in how to interact effectively with the youth.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Much like I had house parents when I was in the group home and the youth shelter.
Yes.
Right, it was a similar structure. There's a couple, a married couple, who are taking care of the kids in the home.
Right, so you had that behavior had been modeled for you.
Yes.
At that point, and so when that was happening, when that behavior was being modeled for you, were you taking like mental notes, things to do, things not to do, which you then applied later?
I don't know if I was that proactive, but you know, I think we were very lucky with the house parents and release house parents. So those are the couples that work on the weekends. We were very fortunate in that we had very positive and energetic and couples who were really devoted to the kids and really, really wanted to make a difference, not just sit there and get a paycheck.
So at some point, you noticed the same thing that all of us who start nonprofits are confronted with, which I just described in one word: fragmentation. It's the fact that there are a zillion nonprofits who do a zillion good things, and the left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing.
Correct.
I don't know. Do you say it more diplomatically? I don't know.
Well, I think what I experience is what you describe in essence, is when you go online and you're trying to find some kind of resource to help youth aging out, whether it's for housing or education or employment, it's just so hard to find what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Because whatever comes up, you've got organizations, you've got news articles, you've got books, you've got training programs, you've got everything under the sun coming up. Even if you're really good with your search terms, you might become too narrow and not find anything, right? So if you put too many things in there to find exactly what you want, where you live, sometimes nothing comes up.
Yeah.
So it was just very frustrating to me to experience that, and I was thinking, wow, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it is for the youth themselves to even know where to turn, or the adults who work with them. How do they know where to turn? What organizations can help? So that's why I thought, I'm going to try to develop a website where I can compile resources for people in a centralized fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the research is the hardest thing to do. Well, it's not the hardest thing to do, but it's the first giant roadblock.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, after you do the research, then of course it's filling out forms, meeting deadlines, showing up at the right place at the right time. Those are all other obstacles. But I've seen a million kids get stopped right at the get-go because searching for information. So what you wanted to do was compile these resources in a way that they could be used. Is that right?
Right. In 2010, I developed this website, just developed it myself, and I created a page for every state. I went out on the internet and I started looking for these organizations that help youth age out, prepare to age out, or help them after they've aged out. And I would look for their mission statement. I'd put a link in a list, and I'd put their mission statement or some kind of description so that when people visited the site, they'd go to their state and they could scroll down through an alphabetical list of resources and link to the websites of the ones that were listed there.
Right. And so, like, what kind of feedback do you get? And when I ask that question, I'm asking, are there a specific grouping of resources that get requested more than others? A particular state that's more active? A particular age group? What do you hear about your site?
Yeah, it's really varied. I of course mostly hear from youth who are older. Mm-hmm. Who have just aged out. I would say maybe most of the emails that we get have to do with youth who have just aged out and they're looking for help, or adults who know of youth who are about to age out and are looking for some kind of help to support them when that happens.
I have to
say,
I get that more than youth getting in touch with me. More than youth, I'll get the grandmother. Will call me up and say, this is my grandson. He needs a lot of help. He might be homeless at this point, and God bless. The one thing that it seems that these folks all have is a cell phone. And sometimes it's that grandmother who that's the one thing that she's able to do for them is she pays for that cell phone every month. And in the hopes that I think that they'll just call, and keep in touch with her. That's the link.
Right.
That
she doesn't want to lose that child, a grandmother and uncle, they're thinking of this young person as their child. They don't want to lose touch with them. They want to do what they can to help them succeed.
Absolutely. Now, I heard you're thinking about building a Match.com type website to go along with the Aging Out Institute. What's that all about?
Yeah, it's an idea that we've gotten because one of the other groups of people who contact us are people who say, you know what, we have a room, we're empty nesters, we have this extra room, we would love to put up a young person who's aged out of foster care, have them stay with us, but we don't know how to find them. Right. So they reach out to us at Aging Out Institute to be connected. And that's a tough thing. Mostly what I can do is connect them with local foster care agencies or maybe local universities for them to to talk with the people there and see, hey, is there anybody you know of who could use this room? So I thought, what if there were an Airbnb or a Match.com type of website where people who have a room to give to these youth and the youth who are looking for a place to stay could find each other.
Right.
So we're actually exploring the idea right now. We haven't ultimately decided on it yet, but we're interested in it. I personally, I think it seems like a really good idea, and it could be very effective, but there's a lot to think through first.
Now, local for you would mean the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area, right? That's where where you're calling from, right?
Yeah,
and,
that's where we're based.
But yeah, I get calls from people all over the country who say that exact same thing. They're just good-hearted people, who say, I'm an empty nester or whatever, and I have 2 bedrooms. I'd love to help a college person during summer break. I think in their good-heartedness, there's a few things that they're not considering that I'm sure you would. And I call this like filling an inside straight, because when you take when you take any person really, or especially a college student during summer break, it's not just the bed. It's the bed, it's food, it's employment, it's transportation to and from employment. And for that matter, it's transportation to get all their stuff from the campus to this wonderful house and then back to the campus, when the summer's over. So I think of it like filling an inside straight. Logistically, all those things have to work in order for it to be a proper placement from a logistical point of view. Then you're hoping everybody gets along.
Right. There's that too.
After that. So you never know 100% how that's going to work out. But it's a great thing to endeavor. It might not always be perfect, but if it saves a young person from being homeless, right?
Well, that's the ultimate goal, is to try to provide at least a bridge.
Yeah.
For these young people, to help them, have a place to live, not have to go through the homelessness or the couch surfing, so that they can, pull their lives together and be able to get out on their own.
Yeah. And I do make these people, as good-hearted as they may sound on the phone, I still make them fill out a pretty long application and do a fingerprint background check. I don't know. I don't know that it's 100% necessary, because we're talking about housing not children, but people who are over the age of consent. I mean, people who are over the age of 18 or 18 or over.
Right. Technically adult.
But I would just, it's for my own personal peace of mind, do a fingerprint background check, let it come up clean, and then I feel a little bit better, and letting me check your references and stuff like that.
Right.
About doing that, and you'll do all those same things too, I'm sure. With the few minutes that we have left, you're doing other things. You're building out beyond the original resource database that you had compiled for the Aging Out Institute. First of all, I love the information that you tweet. I should tell our listeners that many of the articles that you hear me read about here on the show, to keep everyone informed about the child welfare system, come from tweets from the Aging Out Institute, and I follow it religiously.
If you see what time they come out, that's what I do first thing in the morning when I get up. I come to my computer, I look for the articles that have come out in the past day, and I post one or two. So that's every morning.
You are fantastic at it, and I thank you. But you are also working on 2 other things: an awards program, and then also we wanted to talk about a life skills curriculum, which is farther down the road. The awards program is real, and it's in the process of happening right now, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, we have received multiple applications for awards in 4 categories. It's education, employment, housing, and relationships. And we're looking to recognize organizations that have programs that help youth in these areas be successful, and that the programs themselves are innovative and effective, and they share their strategies in a very detailed application process. And then what we've done is we've actually found 8 judges who are researchers, practitioners, and experts in the foster care field, and they are the judges. It's not just me choosing a winner, that I think looks good. These are peers, if you will, reading the applications and deciding, we're scoring these applications, and we've come up with a winner combined. So there's 2 judges per category of awards.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are currently reading and scoring the applications as we speak. So that's what they're doing right now. And the winners will be announced at the end of July.
Do you have to, do the winners get something besides the bragging rights?
They get bragging rights, and they get an actual physical trophy. There's no monetary award, but what we're going to do is we're going to take the strategies of these winning programs, and we're going to write up white papers about each one.
Okay.
So each one's going to have details like, how are they funded? How are they staffed? What kind of training does the staff get? What are the steps of the program? How do they identify success, and how do they track the success of the youth? And so on. So there are going to be so many details about each of the winning programs that, one, organizations that already have a similar program might learn from them and make changes to their own program to improve them. And 2, you've got people who want to start programs who would be able to read these award-winning papers and get some really great ideas, and from the get-go be able to incorporate effective strategies that work instead of just having to try things out and see if they work or fail.
Right. Now, Lynn, we're running out of time here, and you are going to have to come back on our show at the end of July and tell us who the winners are. And between now and July, you and I should be able to work out Skype so that the people at home can actually see you.
Oh, okay.
All right. And then also in July, let's make it a point to tell the world about your life skills curriculum, because between you and me, I can't wait for that to come out. I think that is going to be spectacular. Given your background in building adult education training and the way you know to get experts to work on this sort of thing, I think this is going to be earth-shattering, and I want to make sure that we reveal it here first on the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Oh, I would be happy to do that, and it'll be closer to the time when we're actually building, too, so I'll have more information.
Excellent. Lynn, we have to let you go. I am so sorry. I thank you so much for being on this show, and I hope you'll come back in July and share more with us at that time.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I have a few final thoughts to share with you. Some of them from tweets of the Aging Out Institute. We are back. Welcome back. Lynn Tonini from the Aging Out Institute. Isn't she spectacular? Hi, Scott. I know you're out there listening, and I thank you very much for tuning in. Please hit that share button. Tell your friends, okay? We have about 9 minutes left, and I do have some things to share with you. First, I wanted to say a few words about the Dave Thomas Foundation, because the Dave Thomas Foundation is a major player in the foster care world, and they deserve recognition. You're going to hear me talk more about them in future episodes. The foundation is the only public nonprofit in the United States that is focused exclusively on foster care adoption, and this is such a huge issue right now, especially given the opioid epidemic. Through its signature program called Wendy's Wonderful Kids, the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption gives funds and provides training to adoption agencies in the U.S. and Canada. These agencies hire adoption professionals who implement the foundation's proactive child-focused recruitment model targeted exclusively on moving America's longest-waiting children from foster care into adoptive families. And when you talk about longest-waiting children, you know you got to be talking about children who are not 2, 3, 4 years old, but children who are maybe middle school age and older and high school age. So the work that the foundation is doing is spectacular. They work closely with child welfare advocates and policymakers, provide free resources on foster care adoption, and they raise awareness through various campaigns. And when they do a campaign, it's not a small campaign. They have National Adoption Day belongs to them, and the annual Home for the Holidays TV special on CBS is sponsored by the Dave Thomas Foundation. Wonderful, wonderful work. And of course, you know the germination of that is that Dave Thomas himself was adopted, the founder of Wendy's. From the New York Daily News comes an interesting story written by Jillian Jorgensen entitled, ACS Pilot Program Helps Young People Prepare for Life as They Age Out of Foster Care. And this is really the story of Ezekiel Jimenez, who is 21 years old. And he's dealing with a lot. He's trying to find housing, he's trying to find a job, he's taking college classes, and he's doing all this without much of a family support net. It's not always easy to cope. I've gotten angry and I've been seen as disrespectful because of my situation, so I guess I came off the wrong way. But I'm under a lot of stress, Jimenez said. They expect a lot from us, but they forget to see the obstacles that we face, and that happens all the time. Helping young people aging out of the foster care system deal with those obstacles is the goal of YV LifeSet. Again, that's YV LifeSet. A new pilot program in New York City will launch next month. YV LifeSet is actually the brainchild of a Tennessee-based organization. YV stands for Youth Villages. And it'll be rolled out at 2 nonprofits this year, the Children's Aid Society, where Jimenez gets his services, and next year at New York Foundling. So many people age out of foster care who are just really not prepared. And this is according to Youth Villages CEO Patrick Lawler in an interview that he had with the New York Daily News. Many foster children expect life to be great as soon as they age out, even if they don't really have a plan for where they're going to live, Lawler said. YV LifeSet aims to help them learn basic life skills, how to keep themselves fed, how to keep a roof over their head, how to land a job and how to keep a job, how to pay bills, how to continue their education. It's funny how there's giant umbrella terms, you know, like get a job, and that's all really good, but there's the managing of the money and the planning ahead that people really need help with. And according to Lawler, he says they just don't think about those kinds of things. They've planned out, you know, maybe the day, but after that, you know, after that they're living day to day, and they start over each day. They start over a new day, a new plan. Now, YV LifeSet started in Tennessee and now operates in 10 states, including New York. New York and Pittsburgh are the first big cities where the program is operating. YV LifeSet's model is flexible, and New York's program will be adjusted to account for differences in issues like transportation and housing. Youth Villages will enlist local employees and work with social service providers, Lawler said. Caseworkers in the program will have small workloads, 8 to 10 cases apiece, and they'll be required to meet with their charges at least once a week. This is a dramatic improvement, and really makes a difference, because a lot of people who age out of the system will tell you that at that moment they just felt as though they were completely forgotten. The program asks young people to come up with living plans, and the caseworkers and other program employees will help them carry them out. Now, that will not necessarily benefit people who age out of the system who have executive functioning disabilities. They won't be able to make a plan. They'll need help from the making a plan phase. It's important that they come up with the best way to solve some of their problems, and sometimes they fail, and that's okay. We'll be there to pick them up when they do, Lawler said. The program will serve about 350 young people over 3 years. A lady named Soraya Friedman-Gonzalez, executive director of New Yorkers for Children, said the goal is to get better outcomes for those leaving the foster care system. People who grow up in foster care have problems adjusting to adulthood. According to Friedman-Gonzalez, half will not have jobs when they age out. About 60% of male former foster children will end up with some connection to the criminal justice system by age 24. Substance abuse is at about a 50% clip. 7 out of 10 women are going to become pregnant before they're 21 years old. This is according to Friedman-Gonzalez. So this is a serious issue, and we wish Mr. Jimenez the very best. And finally tonight comes a story from, of all places, Durant, Oklahoma. And I want to end on a happy note tonight. So here, for many high school kids, prom night is something they'll never forget. For one local high school, they saw the big dance as an opportunity to give back to others. See, there's a home in Durant, And that home will be the new home of J127 Ministry, a local organization that will provide housing and care for kids who are aging out of the foster care system. It will be a transition home, not a permanent home, a transition home for youth that are aging out of foster care. If they're aging out of foster care, if they're out of the system, if they're out of a group home, or if they just simply find themselves homeless due to lack of support, said J127 Ministry directors Adrian Stinnett and Billy Hamilton. 13 at-risk young women will soon call this place home. Now, the ministry is leasing the property from the Southeastern Oklahoma State University for $1 a year, and they got it on a 99-year lease. So for $99, they can help these people. This is wonderful news. I mean, think about it. Durant doesn't have the foster care load that LA County does, but they do have a foster care load, and they have people who age out, and this would be absolutely perfect for it. So the prom, the kids in the prom, instead of spending 20 grand on their prom, they spent a little bit less on their prom, and they donated $11,000 to the J127 Ministries project to help these people. And the point here is, well, this is what they said. They said this is going to help generations to come. I'm ready to see what this group of kids is capable of, because if they're capable of doing this at a young age, can't wait to see what they do when they're older. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. And we thank you for tuning in and maybe helping to spread the word. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, and look forward to seeing you all here next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Till then, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night.